wind and
You create the file, Paul can upload it.
there you go. So this is the blend shape deformation. I'm going to be working on Phil's head here. When you're working on your model, you should keep it the entire model. Don't go chopping off the head. And I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut for duplicate, or you can also go up to edit, duplicate, and move to the side. Edit, duplicate, but there's also,
Select them.
but you can also hit Command D, which is the keyboard shortcut, which duplicates.
Command D.
Yep.
Yep, Command D.
Or you can go to edit
And then you need to
and duplicate.
How many?
Oh, I got
I think
about
you
3.
just
There we go. Okay, let me delete that. Take that.
Oh.
I got 2 heads now.
How many?
Well, you will want multiple heads. The thing with blend shapes is you want to plan out in advance how many types of expressions you're going to do, which is why it's a good idea to have a storyboard. Because if you want like the right eyebrow up, that's one head. The left eyebrow up, that's another head. Right eye wink, that's another head. If you want just the mouth, one part of the mouth to move, that's another head. If you want the whole mouth to move, that's another head.
Is the idea kind of like when you do claymation, where they make a number of different expressions and then
Yeah,
every frame by frame they just change their face?
yeah, pretty much. It is like that. It's like claymation. You just kind of like,
As far as
You
the
need a-
process.
if you see some people when they have this done with like a really complex facial rig, they have all the phonemes, all the facial expressions. This can get huge.
Or they just make a whole library of them and then add them in the end.
Yeah, well, when you do your blend shape thing, you can either pick out groups that you know you want to be together so that they're in a little set of their own, or do them all, but you have to label them, which is actually the next. Each time you move this guy, you're going to want to probably label him at some point when we start working on it. So you'll do things like right eyebrow up, right eyebrow down.
How'd you get rid of the plane?
Show, which is right here on that, and then go all the way down to grid.
Oh.
In this case, it stuck it back on. So goodbye, grid.
That's cool.
So that is. So yeah, it helps to have a little bit of planning going into how many heads you think you're going to do. You also don't want to just like grab a bunch and duplicate them, because then you're not certain what order they're going in. So,
We looked at that and we're not gonna
yeah, but so do a couple of heads. Now, if you don't have your scene storyboarded out yet, and you aren't entirely certain what you're going to do, one advice is think of like all the typical ones, but if you're animating, you also want to exaggerate them. Like if you want the eyebrow up, it's a good idea to make it a little bit further up than you think you would really want it to be, because it gives you a slider for control, so you can control how high up it goes. Whereas once you start animating and you get to a point you go, ooh, I want to do a Warner Brothers full-on take with the eye popping up in the eyebrows, and you didn't do enough, it's really hard to go back and change them. So it's always a good idea to kind of go, this is where I want it to be, push it a little bit more, just a little bit. Because frequently animation is about exaggeration. Not always, but frequently. So, like in this case, I'm going to call this guy now right eyebrow. You'll notice I do weird abbreviations. That's It's a hangover from olden days. Now I just selected a bunch of verts, but I also want to make sure I don't select verts I don't want. So I go back and unselect those guys. And that's his eyebrow. And I'm going to say, well, I want him to be really surprised. And I'm going to unselect some of these guys on the side. Push up the thing. Does that look surprised enough? One eyebrow up. I mean, ideally you would have these guys texture mapped so that the eyebrow is a different color. And we're going to do another eyebrow. Also the right eyebrow though. This is where, now you can try doing soft select. I don't know if Paul has told you about the soft select and how you can control the little slider to see how much it controls. I think that grabs a little bit too much for what I usually want to do. One eyebrow. Oh, didn't name that guy. Gotta name him eyebrow down. Naming becomes fairly important as you go along in things. In this case, it's because all the sliders will have the names of the items on there, and if you haven't named it, key cube 14 doesn't really help you figure out which one it is. Let's give him a wink or a squint. And that's the right eye. Wink. Now I could be diligent and go down and do the left eye and all those other things. But this is going to be a quick demonstration so you can see the naming and the sliders. Now that once you have your models done, you'll want to grab them, and you don't want to just drag, drop, and grab them because, again, Maya is picky about what sequence you do them in. So if you go 1, hold down Shift, select, 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 and make sure that your main model is the last version selected. And then if you're over here, you'll notice the animation package. There's deform, and you want to do blend shape. Now, I don't know if every computer is set up to do this. You'll notice there's this really nice little blend shape over here. If that didn't show up, you can go to Windows, Animator, come on, Animator, and go to the shape editor. So here's our main character, main head. And now we have an eye wink slider. And we have an eyebrow down and an eyebrow up. And what's weird is you can combine them and it shares their influence on them. So you can get like, I want to go partly down and partly up with a partial wink. Oh, come on, wink. And as you'll notice on the side, they are keyable, so you can make keyframes on them. In fact, I want to go through and try and do the left eye a little bit so we can do some more clever blending action. So grab some verts. Make sure it's only the verts that you want selected. Whee! What do you think? Sometimes it's helpful to do those kind of guys beside each other so you have them for visual reference on each other. That looks like about the same. grab some more words. And slide over, slide down. In case you're not familiar, I'm just hitting F in order to center what is selected. Now, as I've said, it's hard to add things to it, but you can actually go through and create a whole new set of blend shapes.
Alan,
Oh, I didn't do the naming.
you said your main model is the one you do last.
Yes,
Why is it?
it's the way that Maya thinks about it. You're saying, here's all these blend shapes and apply it to this one. So if you selected it, like if you did a drag and drop selection and said, I just want to make all those a blend shape, you don't have any guarantee that this guy is in fact the last one selected. Even though it's green, it might not be the last one that was selected when you dragged and dropped.
Oh, and it'll be out of order.
Yeah, and it would be out of order. Also, in this case, if you wanted to, if you have a very complex set, you could go, okay, I know I want this slider to be and this slider to be next to each other, and this slider and this slider to be next to each other, and then add the winks as a separate thing, and own a little slider down below because I know I'm not going to wink very often or something. So it allows you to kind of decide, I want these things grouped in certain ways. And left, eyebrow, down. Did I? Yes, I did. Got that. So if I go through and I select my guy last, and I say make blend shape, you'll notice it actually in fact just added a whole new set of blend shapes, which is why you can do it in little sets, like I'm going to do all of this one and then make it a set, but I'm just going to delete that guy. Bye-bye. So now we have Phil, and he has the right eyebrows, but as well as the left, so you can do kind of like, ooh, I want to do a where's my left eyebrow? So you can make different kind of expressions. But like I said, it's all about blending. This is 0 influence, 100% influence. You can try to do 100% of things that are in opposition to each other, and you should kind of end up in strange places. This guy is always at 100. I don't actually even know what that one is. That's probably when you have multiple blenders together. So you can see why you can get a lot of things going pretty quickly. If you start doing phonemes, which is the basic mouth shape for each letter, or phrasing of a letter, the way they sound, that gets to be a fair number of shapes. And then when you start throwing facial expressions, smile, sad, excited, pain, you can get lots and lots of models going off to the sides. Which is why it's also important to keep them named, because then you'll know what they are once they're on the board. Got any questions yet?
I wanted the blend shape option, so I'm not seeing that same screen.
What shape comes up?
You said you use blend shape option for they couldn't get, if that didn't come up, could it go somewhere else?
I am hoping. Come on, animation. And there's the shape editor. You have run shape shift. Maybe I need to run shape shift. Okay, well, that's all I'm showing. But that's also the,
So I would have to do it first,
yes.
for it to appear right over there.
I'm not sure exactly why this one is set up to here. I'm pretty sure you could drag it over and dock it there.
You said just, when you selected, I just wanted to select that.
Is that your main or is that a duplicate?
I'll use them just for practice as a main. So you said, what you said? Let's see. F.
F allows you to zoom in on what is selected.
Okay, so select.
Shall I go through
Maybe.
again? Slower. Wow.
I was doing it, I was manipulating before, but now it seems like it won't let.
So save.
Okay.
And let's get rid of the grid. Okay, so I'm going to call him my main. You do not make any changes to the main. The main character is just your source material. So we'll duplicate him. Boop. There's a duplicate. And we'll duplicate that guy. And again. Now, the first change you want to make, hit F to zoom in on this guy. I usually like to start with, okay, let's do the eyebrow. It's just kind of boring and easy to do. Want to make sure that only the vertex we want to move are selected. Let's go really crazy with that eyebrow.
Face. Object. Would it, you going to object mode? Or, multi, or? Because
Are you
it's-
talking about this thing up here? I'm usually in object mode unless I like click on verts.
Okay, because when I select the eyebrows, it doesn't select.
Are you in? I'm selecting the verts that form the eyebrow. Oh, you're also in mirror mode. Symmetry.
He selected multiple rings.
In my case, I usually just do a drag and drop, or a drag selection. When
Yeah, I
you
know.
click and hold down.
So I selected that too.
I need to. Okay, I have to select the verse in the back of the head too.
Yes, that's the tricky part. It shoots through the geometry and selects other things, so I usually go to wire, I go grab, and then switch to wireframe so I can see what other verts are
Okay, real
selected.
real
And then you can
eyebrow.
hit Control, and that will subtract them from your selection.
Oh, okay.
Using the rock eyebrows.
How'd you go to wireframe?
4. 5 is shaded, 6 is texture. Yes? Wow. Okay, good job. Soft selection. Yeah, just double click on the move and it tells you whether you're turn on and off soft selection. Some people will find themselves in symmetry. Again, double click the selection arrow up here. Boop, boop. Double click it. And you can turn off soft selection or turn off symmetry if you find yourself in those. Sometimes soft selection can be useful because it allows you to move a number of verts, but not all of them with the same amount of influence. And this will control like how much influence your soft selection has. So you can go, I want to select a whole bunch of stuff. But for the way I'm doing it right now, I don't want a soft selection on. So select vertex. I do a drag marquee. Hitting 4 gets you wireframes. You can then hold down Control and deselect if you selected too many. Come on. And what side you over here? Make him look angry.
From wire to G. Yeah, did you? Wait, we have a vertical? Yeah, like this, right, over there. Here's your mark, your marking.
So now I've got just the right eye doing a wink and an eyebrow up and down. So I can select, then hold down Shift and select the next one and the next one, and then the main.
You just change one thing on each face.
Yes. In one case, it's like this eyebrow is up, this eyebrow is down, this eye is winked. So basically, if you want both eyes to blink simultaneously, you could do both eyes, but frequently you want more control than that, so you do each eye individually. That would be 2 different heads. And if you want to be able to control the eyebrows separately from each other so they're not always locked in unison, that's in each head for each of them too.
One going up, one.
Is it like frame by frame animation when the camera it will catch his face at the time like that?
What is the question?
How is it gonna come out when it's
Oh, when you set keyframes, you can set, once you have the blend shapes up, there's a slot on the far right for setting keyframes.
What is this?
So you can then go through and add the keyframes, and they will blend one to the other over however many frames you allot. And then you can go into the curve editor if you want to make it do a stair step, just chunk, chunk.
Motion.
We'll get to the showing the animation set in a second, but let's go. So if I go deform, blend shape, now we look back at just our main character. And there's his eye wink, his eyebrow down, eyebrow up. So I can go down with that guy and then bring that down. You can also do all the mouth shapes. You could wiggle his ears.
Animation, I thought we were animation. Wait, he's in animation. But you're still in there. See, I don't have mine. It's not
Modeling
mine.
toolkit.
She's in what? Oh, she's in.
He don't have this one.
Oh.
He don't have this modeling toolkit. He don't have that.
It's grayed out.
Yeah, that's not break it out. Sure, okay, I agree on, to, you go back into animation. Wow, I'm not on
You just want to do one head and change it just to get the slider up and see what it does.
Okay.
Just do that. You don't have to do like the entire set of expressions.
this. Under soft selection.
Hmm? Soft selection?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
Nope.
So, this one, you think of it as Z. Oh, boy.
Oh, you had left it in soft
So
selection.
once I got, you got your, whatever you wanna do with it, what's next?
Well, the next thing, like I said, is to select each of the heads in the sequence.
In the sequence shift, select and then shift?
Yep. Hold down Shift and select.
Okay. Now I can follow. File. Yeah, open scenes or save scenes?
Well, I was just changing over.
Oh, put both his head on one body. You see this in tomorrow?
You put in there as well?
Tomorrow's Tuesday.
You can cut over there. See your body?
Yeah, sometimes. Well, Bianca's my buddy. I know Bianca. She Filipino?
Oh.
My little sister. And Jay. Jay he's in love with that young girl.
Let's go.
You see her? You should come in there. She was coming to you. You get the eye too.
Did that mistake. Zoop, gotta get rid of those guys. So once you have several of your heads calculated out and worked on. There's your main, which and we're just going to call this one up and down and wink.
See, when you select on, you have a name, that doesn't mean you're in the wrong box. Okay,
When I select on them, over under the channel,
channel,
you have your channel box layer.
this is the one that was missing. You under the channel box?
Yeah. There's the name.
PQ too?
Yep.
Okay, upper right. That's what I'm calling.
So the first one have to be in a normal position.
Yes, the
right?
first one should be in the normal
Position,
unmodified.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And second and third and next will be the one that change.
Yeah, and then each duplicate could be for part of an expression that you have in mind.
I like to take it slow. Get it first and then.
Frequently I start with, let's create a sphere and move some bricks around. Does that work? Okay, now let's try that.
Well, no, it's always, it's like I have to do it again. Well, everybody, repetition.
Oh, yes, lots of repetition. So, yep.
I have a question. So for the blinks,
Mhm.
when a character blinks, is that the same way they do this? Or-
This is kind of a crude approximation using this model.
Okay.
So,
Sometimes you'll see they actually have a sphere with shells. They kind of blink.
Open.
Yeah, open and close. This isn't quite that sophisticated, so I was just using a kind of.
so I like right now.
Just remember, the main model is not the one that is modified. It's all the duplicates that get modified. And then once you have your variations made, it is Shift, select, your way down,
Shift, select, shift,
and then under the animation module, deform, there's blend shape.
Did you hit the option box?
I did not hit the option box. Like that. Over here, there's keying. So when you actually start doing animations, you'll be actually using those to set keys.
But you don't have those. Just under shape and.
Shape editor.
Yeah, head shape.
No, it said
Well, you see how you
shape,
manipulate.
shape editor.
Shape, yeah.
We don't have shape editor.
I don't know why some of them are docked and some of them are not. But but it's Windows Animation Editors, then Shape Editor.
Ah, there. Well, wait, look at them like that, do I just need to double click? Or press one?
On the background. Which is your main character? Background looks good.
Oh,
The one that's supposed to go up,
oh.
one goes up. I forgot what it's called. Okay, upright.
So you need to have your main, you do not change its geometry. It's just the reference model, then you duplicate it, and on each duplicate you can make changes. And then when you go back to the main, it should look plain without any changes to it until you affect it with a slider. So I suspect you use this as your main and move his eyebrow, which means that now he's for an eyebrow. And then you either selected it this way and made him main, so that now his animation. Second in command. Let's see what we can do.
And I even select, oh no, I didn't. Select the numbers. Yes. So that's not okay.
Not going to work quite right. Let's
Okay.
take these guys to 0.
Do it again.
So, in this example, this is the main head. He doesn't have any changes made to him by geometry. Each of the changes are done
Oh,
with
at
each
all, at
subsequent duplicate head.
all. Okay, don't change them at all, leave them alone.
Yes, he should remain unchanged because all the changes will be applied to him by the mathematical sliders.
Yeah, that's what, okay.
Thought I was clear?
Okay, so new team. Yeah, you were, but, you know,
It's new. It's a new theory.
let me see
The file on desktop.
So when you select all the cases,
Mm-hmm.
you select the unchanged one as well.
Yes, but you select it last. Yep. You got the dot button. No, all the way up to the top. That's editing. Oh, right, the create.
So good.
You click on the background.
And D.
Now it should be able to. Some changes are subtle. Also, it's gray on gray, so it's kind of hard to see.
Oh, no, I just hit.
No, someone's got a hand up. Is it not working?
Should it be under, okay, maybe I should.
Okay.
Oh, and I hit, brought them back in, I hit Command D, I'm in modeling. I don't know if I shows you. I just did that.
how many versions we have going on.
Yay.
It's two, so I need three. Let's go one more.
I was just wondering, because some people have, like,
He's the first, or it doesn't matter at this point?
just wanna make sure we're not on things that would do like multiple edits or multiple.
So right now, neither one, could I go option and, or command D again? Or
Yeah.
Option
You should be able to do
command
command
D.
and just grab it. Here.
But, and so this guy, one of them, they don't get touched.
Yeah,
These two, I.
Yep. The main, the last one, the main one should remain unmodified and unchanged, since all the other changes will be applied to him by the
Okay, vertex,
shape editor.
vertex, after. Okay, so,
That's just a quick way of
okay,
centering what you have selected.
now I'm gonna. Warning.
Chat.
So, control allows you to subtract.
Control. Okay, so watch what I do here. So it shouldn't do it, do I need to check? it?
No,
Okay,
shouldn't.
so when I do him,
When you grab some verts to move them, if it looks like the moongar was slightly buried inside the head, it means there's probably verts on the back side that have been grabbed as
okay, so now.
well. Whoa, that's just
Just
one.
one too much.
That's just one vert. I don't know how you're trying to grab.
Here's oh, just one else.
That's the interesting about that command, it's very easy to grab.
Oh, that's it. That's some in the back. Okay, and then.
Bring it back. I think it's kind of weird. His eyebrows kind of asymmetrical to his head, so I was also dragging the side to the side.
Okay, so now I got it. Now I'm just, well, he's selected, so I can go shit up.
He's selected.
So then I like set the votes.
Then,
That one, then that one. And we should be able to go to deform.
The first one is
Now if you want to go.
have sliders.
no, that's the first one,
That is the first one that has,
Yeah.
all the modifications are applied to him, because you selected it last.
right? Ah,
And the sliders say how much of that change for each of the other ones that you apply to it. So you can do a little bit or a lot of it. And again, this is one of the reasons why naming is good, because this is your eyebrow up. But if you had named the geometry eyebrow up, that's what it would say there.
This one is up? Oh, I didn't think so. Q3.
Whatever this one is, the up. Although technically you probably want to do R for right.
And that one-
Eyebrow up.
That one is down.
You want to name it whatever will tell you the information you need.
Gotcha.
Yeah, when I started, names had to be short, so you used strange abbreviations. So I would probably do R-E, right eye, B, brow, U, up. You know, somebody else would open the file and go, what the hell is R-E-B-U? Rebu. It's like, that's right eye, brow, up.
Okay.
Do you have a question?
No.
Oh, that was a question. This is Is it working?
You could break that into a bunch of phases by going. But if you want to do specific, you can go.
Sing some music to it.
Oh, you can sing too, yeah. That expression. There you go. And that slider will do that. From what I hear. It is one of the things like if you have a storyboard for your story, you can kind of go through and plan out what expressions you need and then write them down. But like I said, you want to kind of over exaggerate them sometimes. Or if you're working in a team, the animator come back to you and go, I want it to be able to do this, and you're going, why?
You create those to make it all go on that.
Yes, you're giving mathematical information for Maya to apply to the unaltered model.
I'd like to face it.
If you hold down control, it makes your selection a minus, and you can drag and drop those.
Oh, it's control. Yeah, I was gonna ship it.
Which is kind of a weird deselect what's selected but select what's not selected.
No, yeah.
F4 is wireframe mode. 5 is shaded. 6 is texture map. There's also a little key little icon to click on it and change those settings. I didn't have those before, so I've never learned. You're small, you're tiny. Are you even in this batch?
Oh, this is just from.
It can actually drop on folders and stuff,
I
but
thrown away.
yeah, it is kind of, if you have a set that is like, okay, these are all for when he's happy, these are all for these. You have a fair proliferation head that I don't think you've used them all yet, but as you'll notice, the list of sliders gets longer and longer, and after a while you might go, I wish I broke that up. Did you have a question? I'm going to make an experiment here. Put this guy way over here. Now I'm suspicious that if you don't change the vert order, but you just use like scaling to distort your head, I don't think it actually will apply. So what's this guy? He's main one. So this should. Nope.
Didn't work.
I think it's because it's looking at the actual relationship of the verts and to each other and such. So using things like scale won't work.
What if you use scale on one of the ones you altered?
You can do that. Like for the eyeballs, I grabbed verts and scaled them to create the wink.
Or made one of them a little bigger, his head longer or something? Would
Yeah,
that-
if it's just part of the geometry, I think it will apply. But in this case, since I grabbed the entire geometry and scaled it, I think it thinks of the vertex sequence as being unchanged in relationship to each other. Goodbye.
Here. This one? Yeah, sure.
Shall we take a break? I will pause our recording if I can figure out how. Stuff over here. Let's see. So here's our main head.
Okay.
And this particular head has an eye wink, eyebrow up, eyebrow down, left eye wink, eyebrow up, eyebrow down. And he also can move his right ear. Now if you start doing animations, you'll have to use the little keyframer over here for your blend shapes. If we go out to say frame 32 and say, oh, we want his eyebrow to go up, weep, you'll notice you haven't actually made an animation. So move that back down. We have to go to the first frame and set a keyframe. Now, this is an annoying part to me because it's like, yes, we want to key everybody here at 1. And then we can go to frame 48 and say we want his eyebrow to go up. And then go back to, well, I don't know. Let's pick 62 and say his eyebrow goes back down.
That's easier than that.
And there we got our little animation. Now that is the tricky part, is that if you go way out here and say, oh, I want his left eyebrow to go up, it will start moving all the way from the first keyframe you set it. So it'll be either very gradual, or you have to pick a place earlier on and say, you know, you're still at 0 there, guy. So that now it goes. Whoop. So you have to set a keyframe at the point where it's at no expressions so that it starts from 0. But if you pick a point way out and say, I want him to wink, it's not going to be a very fast wink because he's going to be starting his wink all the way from 1 and finishing it at 116. So you have to figure out where before 116 you want that wink to be not a wink. And then at 116 make it a wink so that when you play it, we got a really slow wink again. Because somewhere back here we got a,
Yeah, that's easier.
there's the wink. That's the eyebrow up. Where's our wink? Wink. Wink should be at 0.
So I can go to 50, select it, go to 50, and then, or go to 50 and then select it, it will go right there. You know, animate it from there, then go to 100 and then put the down.
Yes. Basically, if you just go, hey, I'm at frame 280 and I want my character to wink, you need to have it before that number, you have to have a open eye and then a wink and then an open eye again, or otherwise it'll just be a very long, slow wink over the entire length until it hits that keyframe. So, like a lot of things, you need to keyframe it at its neutral, if you wish. Set a neutral keyframe, and then before you start the animation, make sure that it's back at still at its neutral. Otherwise, it will just do a really long, slow animation. That's one of the things about my type of computer animation. If you set one keyframe way down there, it'll just start animating from the beginning. So you have to kind of go, if I want to go for 280 frames without winking and then do a wink, you have to set a 0 state or neutral at both that bookends so that it knows to go that far, keeping the eye open, and then a wink, which hopefully is quick, because winks typically are fairly quick. And do we have an animation here? Graph. And not sure if Paul has talked about graph editors, but it shows you all your things like, okay, there's my wink.
Did you animate yours?
And you can see that it's, if I want to shorten up my wink. Wink. Kind of a pop. So just to recap, here's all these heads I made for this particular one. A lot of them weren't used actually, but so here's our origin model, the main. You don't change the main. You make changes to each subsequent model as you go out. Then those are all referenced back to the main, and the sliders control how much influence that selected reference has. Come on.
Could you go back over the animation?
The animating?
Yeah.
Sure. We're going to go, boop. Don't save him. So, if you want to be picky, these are actually the only heads that actually are used in this particular blend.
And what's the minimum amount of expression should you use?
Uh,
Or duplication, is that just a personal choice?
Ideally, you will have some idea of what your story is,
Oh, okay.
or a storyboard, and then you can go through and see what expressions you're going to need. If you're going to go so far as to have the character talking, you'll probably have to do phonemes for all the sounds that are standard for animation. I forget how many those are. There's like 12 or something, which are just shaped mouths for that typically are visually identified with a sound. And the suggestion is you don't do a blend shape for a particular expression. You don't go, okay, I want one surprise, and do all the effects for that surprise, because that's very limiting. That gives you one effect. Surprise. It's probably better to go, okay, I want one eyebrow up, and the other eyebrow up, one eye wide, the other eye wide, so that gives you a lot more control and allows you to kind of mix and match things up. Our suggestion is that you kind of push it a little exaggeratedly, because frequently when you're animating, if the camera's a little further back, it doesn't read unless there's some exaggeration. Also, if you're doing something that's very cartoony, you want lots of exaggeration, like Warner Brothers type craziness. Kind of hard to plan those. But I know when I did this assignment, I had a storyboard but I still, while making the animation, said, "Ooh, I want him to look confused and such and such." And I said, "You know, I didn't actually plan that out, so I'm now trying to make it work with what I have." So, as much as possible, plan out what you have, and maybe cover a few more bases. So there's our main head, and these are the sliders that I've got for this guy so far, which are just basically the eyes and the eyebrows. Although I did put a little right ear wiggle. Don't ask me why. And typically, I want a key for the for his neutral at 1, because that's kind of guarantees me a lock-in at 1 will look that way.
Okay, so when the one, you basically put all of it.
Yeah, I might be overkill on that one
I only have 2, so.
right now. Yeah, it might be kind of overkill. It's just something I've often do is when I was working in companies, we'd have frame 0, which would be your totally neutral pose, and there would be a keyframe for everything there so that you would know, boom, this is his T-pose, nothing's moving. But if you go out to say, oh, let's say 28, and you go, okay, 28, I want him to start a wink. We're going to go back 1 and say, okay, we want the left eye to wink. So we're setting 1 at there, and then we'll say, how long should a wink be? We're going to say 6 seconds. And wink. And 38, take that wink back. You'll notice that it automatically, when you have set a keyframe, it does kind of an automatic.
The 30 or whatever, okay, it goes back.
Pick 2 numbers.
Okay. So you send it and then you give it a duration of time and then you put it back. So it goes back down.
Well, in this case, if I know in frame 28 I want to start the wink, I want to start with the eye wide open, because if I just set it at closed, that means from frame 1 to 28 it will be slowly closing. So you want to go out as far as you want the eye open, and then set a keyframe, and then it's like, okay, if I want a wink to happen in half of a second, well, at 24 frames per second, half a second is 12 frames, then go ahead 12 seconds or 12 frames and set a keyframe with your eye closed, and then back open again so that it plays and then winks as opposed to going slowly closing. So we have so in this case, like, let's see, where is that one curve? Oh, right there. So at 27, I set a keyframe with the eye still open, so that when the eye is fully closed at 32, it didn't just do a slow wink for 32 frames, it actually did a wink from 27 to 32. And then back open again by 38. Because that looks to me a lot more like a wink. Have you discussed layers? Layers in Maya? There is an option for creating layers in Maya. So you could, if you want to clean up your scene, go over here, say create a layer, right click on the layer, add selected, and that allows you to turn them visible or invisible, make them templated or referenced. Both of those are not selectable. A template gives you a wireframe, but you can't select it. Reference gives you it fully visible, but also not selectable. And V just turns off visibility on and off. That allows you to have a lot of models for something like blends, and then you can clean up the scene by just turning off their visibility. You can also name your layer. Blend shapes. No backslash. So that, because at some point you will have a scene which will have a lot of layers. I can guarantee you, if you're doing a lot of Maya work, it's very handy to be able to put things into layers and either template them, reference them, or just turn them off so that they're not cluttering up the scene.
If I create two characters in different scene, can I combine them in one scene?
You can import them into a scene. You can also, with Maya, if you want to get really wacky, you can like have one character come in and then render that and then composite the image in together. But that gets very complex very quickly because it's...
So like, because I think in Flash, the teacher said, you can only animate one object in each layer.
Yes, in Flash, if you have layers, it does layers kind of differently. They're a little bit more like Photoshop layers in some ways. So something in a layer that animates, typically you can't have like multiple animations going on in one layer. Maya is, the layers are basically just a way of holding geometry. Geometry can be in multiple layers. I don't know why you want to do that, but you can.
Well, if you want to have two characters fighting each other in one scene or whatever.
Yeah, you can also have them in different layers or aspects of them in different layers. And like in the games industry, frequently you would have a character and they would have every possible piece of equipment on them, but you don't want them all visible. So you have them all in layers and you just turn off their visibility.
Is that how you do it?
That's one way to do it. Or you can turn the geometry invisible. But frequently with layers, like I said, you can turn something into a template or a reference. So now you can't select it. You can see it. You can say, okay, I want to stick a head on this character, but I'm tired of accidentally selecting the head. You make it a reference. Then you can work around it without being able to select it. So it's a very handy thing to have layers. And as your scenes get more complex, you will find it handier to have them because it'll be like, okay, I have a table full of stuff and chairs and lamps. You can put them all in different layers, label them, and then turn them off so they're invisible, or make them templated so that you know where they are, but aren't cluttering you visually. Or you can just turn them into references so it's like, it's there. You can't select it accidentally. I'm trying to remember. I think my scene had only a couple of objects, like a sofa and a doggy squeaky toy and the main character. But still, you don't want to be clicking on something to select it and have it select something else and be going, no, no. So if you drop it into a layer, you can go, okay, now I don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to select it. Are you cursing Microsoft in the background?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Stupid stuff.
So there's a thing called calisthenics, I think, sometimes, or where you take, like in this case, you would take your blend shape and you'd just step it through each of the various changes in an animation. So you would have your main head and you'd just go, okay, just the eyebrow, just the right eye, just the left eyebrow, just the left eye, just the mouth, and then you'd also run it through combinations of expressions to just kind of like demonstrate what it can do, but it also lets you check and make sure that it's not breaking something. Like, oh, hey, if I have the eyebrow all the way up and the mouth closed, it makes the nose look wonky or something. You can kind of go, oh, I need to clean that up. But if you set up one of those with the appropriate keyframes so that it's just that one action isolated each through all the various blend shapes, that's sometimes referred to as a calisthenic or a demonstration set. And you can go then make a play blast and say, here's all my expression sets, or all my blend shapes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and just run through them. Let me look through the notes, see if there was anything that Paul highlighted as, don't forget to cover this, that I forgot to cover. Oh, yes. It used to be if you missed a blend shape, you would have to start from scratch. But I believe they now have them capacity to add a blend shape. So you can go to Edit, Add Blend Shape. So under Deform Edit category, blend shape, you can add, remove. There's a number of options. So if you get through and decide, oops, I forgot to do a nose twitch, you can set that up and then go into.
Can we export Maya file in the form of JPEG, like make a graphic design like that?
What's
Can
going?
we export the Maya, the scene as in the form of JPEG? Now PNG like to make a graphic design like that.
Oh,
just
so like
photo like that.
if you build a scene in Maya, you
Yeah.
can export just a one render, or you can actually render the scene as a sequential number set. So you could use it for making an image
Like graphic design.
for graphic design. Yeah, you can do that. Sometimes you can also set out a series of sequential images and then rebuild them in another program to create like an animated GIF or something. Let's try Deform Edit. Do I have to? Edit, deform, add. So yes. If you find yourself at the point where you decide you need to add one shape that you hadn't done before, you can go ahead and change the shape and then select the changed one and your main one and go back and do an deform edit, blend shape add, and it just adds it down at the bottom so you get your new shape. Used to be you had to redo the whole thing from scratch, but now you got, there's his left ear and right ear waggle. Let's see if we can. How's it going?
I tried to shape like animated.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, I started with one.
Yep.
Okay, so maybe I've done it 2 times again.
Well, it's got red dots, which indicate that there's a keyframe.
It should be 26 and I was trying to just see how many to go up. I go up. Just for the samples. At 30, I think it was, go right down.
There is no change.
It didn't, yes, it didn't even move up at all.
I don't understand why it wasn't 70.
I think that's the going down.
So what is 0.1? I don't know. Let's see.
What you said.
That's funny. I wonder if it's 'cause mine is on auto key. And then 160.
You said.
What's that? And then 170.
Okay. Oh, so you,
The 0 instead.
you put another key frame in between. So does it go up, come down, E, and go down?
Yeah, go up. Okay. So basically, at 120, we set them both at 0. And I set a key at 140 that's still down, because I didn't want it animating slowly. And I wanted it to be all the way up. And at 160, back down. Then at 170.
And 170 is up.
They're still down, but I know I'm going to about to go down. So that- just to make sure that it doesn't do a long slow down. Back to 0 again.
You know, like,
There's our first
I have
one.
the 6 plus. No, use it. It's actually kind of.
Up, down.
How do you control the speed?
Speed is 24 frames per second, so if you want it to be fast,
No, I mean slow, like the eyebrow going up, maybe you wanted to go up a little slow.
if you want it to go slower, more frames.
More frames?
That's the only real way to control things is if you want it to happen faster, it happens in fewer frames. If you want it to go slower, it takes more frames to do it. Which you could do by going, okay, I want this to be really slow. I'll let you do it so slow. 'Cause you're doing it this way. Wow. Okay, wacky. Could have the slow,
So I put that in, alright?
there's a slow up.
Cause he went up or he went down at 50.
Yep. That was the one they do put in back here, but
How do you remove?
well, the easiest way. For me, it's usually, let's go to animation. Animation. Let's see, if you don't like this up, you can go get rid of that key. Those keys aren't necessary, you don't have to find anything.
That's cool, but I'll be back tomorrow.
There used to be, they still have it, it's called a dope sheet, which was kind of a real quick way to deal with keys. And as long as you have a simple animation, it's still good. But the more things you have animating, the harder it is to deal with. So the graph editor is pretty good for doing quick and dirty key removal. Now, when you're animating things like a skeleton, you'll notice it often gives you keyframes down here that are red on the timeline, and then you can just right click and cut or copy and paste.
So that's why 3D animation kind of, the expressions are kind of like, they get right to the point. Time like 2D animation, you can do a lot of things to make it good. You have to get right with it and that's to express what you want. Pretty much
Yeah.
That's how you want to. Right?
I think the hardest thing in animation is learning timing, because it's very you'll want to go. Well, I mean, if it's easy to move keys around, you can just kind of go 16, every 16 frames I do an action and then I play it and I go, okay, I want this to take longer. You just stretch them out, or there's something happen faster, pull it in. And you can play with the keys that way and then actions will happen at whatever speed you want. If you look at the editor, you can control whether it eases into it or is really quick out of it or whatever. So there's a lot of control that way. But it helps if you have a kind of an understanding of, okay, a lot of animators I know have stopwatches. Because they're always thinking, okay, how long does it take to do this action? Well, I want him to draw a sword. Do I want him to go, or do I want him to go, so, Mississippi, 24 frames? 1 second, 24 frames? Or do I want him to go, and then the case, okay, I want him to take 4 frames, you know, or whatever, so. And that just comes down to what, to your subjectivity and how you want it to play out. Some things also, like, if a guy drops a baseball, it's not going to take 3 seconds to hit the ground. That's not lunges. So that's not lunges.
Mm-hmm. You wanna be on this email too?
I don't know. What email is it?
It's just just open notice on video game development club first meeting this Friday.
He's the president.
Uh,
The president.
Yeah.
You're the president.
See how many freaking people on it.
Wow.
And I get this data sources from like all these different events. So like all these a bunch of emails to service spreadsheets from previous members.
Is it associated with the Digital Arts and Animation Club?
Yeah, they're in Virginia. And then I forwarded this to the computer science club too.
It's always nice if you can get somebody on the programming side involved.
Right? And I now I
Did you have a question or?
Dan, did I add you on the Slack?
Keep it simple.
I got a
Did you get any
notification from
for the Slack? For the Slack?
Oh, yeah, Slack.
Yeah, dude. If you add it, you get the app.
Should, right?
Yeah.
You'll get a lot. You'll be involved in a lot of conversations.
Now you just have to take that and extrapolate it to the full model that you're working on. When you get, when you know what expressions you want him to have.
I'll make that really simple too.
I started with that theory.
Is that your list?